Good morning. It's nice to see you all. My name is Malcolm Clemens Young. I'm the Dean of Grace Cathedral here in San Francisco, California. Thanks for joining us for the Spring Forum. Our guest this morning is one of my favorites, Reverend John Deere, priest, longtime peace activist, founder and director of the Beatitude Center, host of the Nonviolent Jesus podcast, and author of more than 40 books, including The Gospel of Peace and his newest work, Universal Love, Surrendering to the God of Peace. This latest book emerged from a conversation John had with a young man seeking spiritual guidance. The young man did not believe in God, but he did believe in love, truth, and compassion, to which John replied, "These two are names for God." Together, they agreed to speak instead of universal love. And from that exchange, John began to articulate a renewed understanding of spirituality and of his own life's work as the practice of surrendering to the God of peace. This morning, we will explore how the vision of universal love may call us more deeply into discipleship and what it means to follow the way of peace in a world marked by violence and conflict. John, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Indeed.
It's a pleasure. How about Dean Malcolm? You all are so lucky at Grace Cathedral.
Well,
I'm a groupie.
I feel the same way about you. I've just been so immersed in your book over the last week, and you can imagine what it would feel like with, the Pope making statements about how important peace is, and the Vice President and the President of the United States taking all those comments as if they're being personally blamed for the Iran war. Tell us a little bit about what you would say if the Pope called you and asked you about the kind of the political scene in the United States today, and what would you have advice for him as he kind of tries to navigate these strange waters we've
I've already been giving him a lot
I
of
figured
advice.
you might.
And I heard back from him, and I'm going to be in the Vatican in September, the poor guy.
That's good. Well,
But I wrote
this is practice for as you prepare.
I send him all my books, and I've done the same with Pope Francis. I think we maybe have talked about this. 10 years ago, a small group of us went to the Vatican and had the first ever conference on nonviolence in the history of the Vatican with the full support of Pope Francis. And while we were there, he asked me to write the annual January 1st World Day of Peace message, which I wrote about nonviolence. Is the first statement on nonviolence in the Catholic Church since the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I remember that.
And so I think Francis was just a giant, prophetic, tough guy, Jesuit from Argentina, and then we'll never see the likes of that again. Leo is right in line with him. 25 years among the poor in Peru. And but from his first words were "Peace be with you," and his message on New Year's Day was an unarmed and disarming peace.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraging him still to write an encyclical on Jesus and nonviolence. We got Francis to completely outlaw any support of any Catholic building nuclear weapons, having anything to do with the death penalty, and even getting rid of the just war theory. But the just war theory part's not in canon law yet.
Yeah.
And of course, it'll take decades for it to hit the rest of the world. The United States, I don't know ever. But anyway, I am encouraging Pope Leo to speak out boldly like he is already, and to denounce all wars, denounce all U.S. war making, to call every Catholic to get rid of every gun, quit the military, not support war or fascism or racism, to work to abolish nuclear weapons. How am I doing here, folks? And then to take those trillions of dollars, which we can do easily, and feed everyone, and clean water and housing and education and
we're like
around the world. We can do this.
We can do this. We can end.
But he's like a one voice of sanity we have right now in the total mainstream. And he seems pretty fearless.
Yeah.
But what I think the longer term thing, not only does he need to ordain women as deacons in the Catholic Church, and that has to happen. And it is going to happen. But he also needs to fully get the Catholic Church and then inspire all the churches once and for all to totally renounce and reject violence and war by any Christian. You cannot claim to follow Jesus, who's the epitome of total nonviolence, like Gandhi and Dr. King, and support war.
yeah.
Those days got to be over.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm hopeful that it's beginning to happen after the turn with Francis. What do you think?
I think so too, and I've been thinking just a lot about what Americans should be doing in the face of this war in Iran. It is so unsettling, and there's so little conversation or dialogue or discussion, but that should make it easier to begin the process of just stopping.
Well, I think people around the country were all numb and despairing and depressed, and everybody's putting their heads in the sand and giving up. Which is why your work here at the church is so important, that we have to be a light and speak out. And, there's a lot to speak against, because we're losing democracy by the second. And we're moving not just into deeper racism, but to full-on white supremacy. And it's kind of beyond oligarchy, that we're just serving 1,000 billionaires on the planet. But we've been heading in this direction for 100 years of permanent warfare, nuclear weapons, destroying the planet. So that's kind of what I'm talking about in the book. Things are bad, and they're going to get much worse.
Yeah.
But we, as followers of the nonviolent Jesus, Malcolm, I think you and I have to rise to the occasion and go full on into Jesus, which means saying, okay, I'm done with my own journey in my life. I'm going to be like him, and I'm going to speak out, and I'm going to risk and organize. And Jesus is marching to Jerusalem to confront the empire.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And that's what we got to do. That's what No Kings was about. But the church needs to be leading the way, and you're doing it. And so that's what I was trying to get at the book, to say, how can I do that? Where do I need to go?
Yeah, I loved it. In a way, it's a story about the young man who you met and his kind of conversion to a new way of understanding. But I like that your conversion was part of that too. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that for everybody here. Just what signs were there that you were going to be the person you became before you went to college, and then what happened in 19?
Well, we don't know what happened to me. It's a sad story. I'm trying to make you laugh. But, I was a wild college kid at Duke in the 70s and decided to give up my whole life for Jesus and become a Jesuit.
So how did you decide that? Like, did you just wake up in the morning and just say, hey?
Yeah, it was St. Paul. That's why I say it wasn't pretty. I always joke that I was knocked off the fraternity bar stool. And that's not far from the truth. Do you know who Dr. Paul Farmer was?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned him in the book.
So he was in the room next to me. And we were crazy. And we were smartest kids on campus and the wildest. Dr. Paul Farmer of Mountains Beyond Mountains, one of the smartest person in history. We both had a dramatic conversion within 1 month.
So were you talking to each other? Did you say,
I
just had this.
I would go in at his room at 3 a.m. and he always had a different 30 people in his room all night long. And I was interested in whatever they were drinking.
Yeah.
And but we did this event at Harvard. Of course, I don't remember any of this. And we were speaking at Harvard, and he goes, "You came in one time when you were 18. This is just to make you laugh, Malcolm. I could tell stories all day, but he goes, you started reading Viktor Frankl's, what's the book, The Meaning of Man's Search for Meaning, exactly. At 3 a.m. in their wild party. And I was saying, Paul, this isn't working. We got to give our lives to do something special. And one day, I had decided, I was raised Catholic, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I am going to be a lawyer or a newspaper publisher like my dad, or a rock star.
Yeah.
So I was full on music studies, and I was going to recording studios. I met with Elektra Records. I did all this stuff. And I was sitting in my room, and I thought, oh, what am I thinking? Of course I believe in God. And I was like, well, of course I believe in Jesus. And then it would just happen like this. It's called spontaneous grace. Most conversion stories, this is like a second or third, but are slow. But I thought, oh my God, well, it's all or nothing then. Well, then I just give my whole life to Jesus. And then it was like in 1 second, I saw my whole life was a big setback.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to become a Jesuit. And that's what my friends wonder, how did you make the leap from giving your life to Jesus to become a Jesuit? I went to a Jesuit high school. And my parents were appalled.
Yeah.
Asked me not to.
Yeah, same
I
with me.
worked for a year
Yeah.
with the Kennedys, of all things, for the Robert Kennedy Foundation, saved up a little money, went hitchhiking through Israel to see where Jesus lived, and while I was there, Israel invaded Lebanon in the summer of 1982 and killed 60,000 people. There was nobody at the Sea of Galilee, and I was camping out as a dopey 21-year-old, totally oblivious, visiting the Chapel of the Beatitudes, reading them on the wall. You know, I don't know if you've ever been there in northern Galilee. You know, there's this little chapel, smaller than this room, and the Beatitudes are on the wall. And blessed are the peacemakers. And I just thought, oh my God, I think this guy's serious.
Yeah.
And I was going to be a nice, pious priest. As you see, that didn't work out. And I walked out on the balcony, and there's the Sea of Galilee. And I thought, this is the job description for the Christian.
Yeah.
You have to be meek, hunger and thirst for justice, merciful, be a peacemaker, and you're going to be persecuted for it. And on the altar it said, love your enemies. And I was really shaken. I was really scared. And I was, you know, I'm quite full of myself, as you know. And I said, okay, God, I promise to give my life to the Beatitudes. I know, I'm really fabulous. And the Sermon on the Mount.
So lucky God.
Yeah, right. On one condition. That was the funny part, because I thought I found a loophole.
Yeah.
If you give me a sign. Wasn't that brilliant?
Oh, yeah, that is brilliant.
And all of a sudden, boom, 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 there's 3 black jets fell from the sky, breaking the sound barrier, setting off sonic booms. I'm not like earthquake, like...
Yeah.
And they swooped down over the Sea of Galilee, right over me, and dropped a whole bunch of bombs 15 miles away, border of Lebanon.
Yeah.
And here I am with you now. I've thought about that. So that was like a second conversion.
Yeah, yeah.
And that moment, I've reflected on it for my whole life, and the war had been going on every hour the whole time.
Yeah.
I'd been seeing the jets. But who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just war.
Yeah.
We're just killing everybody. It's like the war in Iran. Well, what can you do? Yeah. I'm following Jesus. And but I kind of heard the Beatitudes, and then I saw war and killing at the place where he said, blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah. And I hit the ground running. Yeah. And I entered the Jesuits a week later, a very, very different person. And they were pretty much wanting to get rid of me from day one. Because I met Daniel Berrigan, and I said, right, we're going for it. And he said, you got to get arrested. I was like, sign me up. And now I'm an ex-con, and I have a lot of problems.
Well, yeah, you know, that was one of the most powerful parts of the book for me, too, is when you're talking about just being in a prison cell with Philip Berrigan for 8 months. And I wonder if you can tell us, like, what you learned there, and, like, what advice would you have if one of us were facing some prison?
Well, if you're interested, see me afterwards,
Yeah.
Malcolm. Doesn't that be great if Malcolm did a plowshare section?
Yeah.
They didn't laugh at that. I think they agreed. Phil and I followed Dan and Phil in 1980 walked onto the GE plant outside of Philadelphia, and they walked right in and hammered on a nuclear nose cone. Yeah. And they said to the judge, we're following Isaiah, who said someday people will be swords into plowshares. There's been over 100 of these actions. Yeah. And in 1993, Phil and I and 2 friends walked onto the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, North Carolina, which is like, it's way bigger than the San Francisco airport. It's like 3 Chicago O'Hare airports. Wow. And there were 75 of these massive fighter bombers, way bigger than Grace Cathedral, with nuclear weapons, and 10,000 soldiers milling around, and we walked right through them. Yeah. And I come up to a big fighter bomber, and and I pull out a little hammer, and I went and hammered once. Didn't even chip the paint. And I faced 20 years in prison for that, and I could never vote. I can't travel to a lot of countries, and I'm really monitored. Yeah. But the government considers me as high up a terrorist as you can get. Yeah. And so we had trained for years and practiced to be shot and killed. Remember, I had lived in El Salvador.
Yeah, right.
And I knew the 6 Jesuit priests who were assassinated. They were my friends and they were my mentors. So if you had known priests assassinated for speaking out, they wrote Romero's speeches. These guys were incredible. Well, I just fine, they're not going to kill me, but they will put me in prison. And why not go with Dan and Phil Berrigan? But what I wasn't planning on is that this was North Carolina, and they put us in a cell smaller than this carpet. So here's a metal bunk, here's the top bunk, and there's the toilet, and the food came through the slot in the door. And we never left the cell for 8 months. So talk about working through your nonviolence. I mean, if Phil would give you a different intake, he had to put up with me. But we lived a monastic routine. We had no possessions. My lawyer was Ramsey Clark, the former Attorney General. It took him 6 weeks to get us a Bible.
Wow.
But we would read a few sentences of the Bible. Our buddy Bruce was allowed to come in, and the warden ended up becoming a friend, and we kind of won him over, and he started managing our press for us. See, nonviolence works. Anyway, we would do, I could go on forever, so I'll try to keep it short. We would read the first 3 sentences of Mark, and it was the heavens opened and the angel was going. So this is what he meant. And I learned so much more than all of my master's degrees in theology school in jail. And then we got a piece of Wonder Bread for breakfast. And on Mondays, we got a little plastic cup with grape juice. And we found that if you hid the grape juice in the top of the toilet, it ferments quite nicely over time. So we broke the bread and passed the cup. And Malcolm, it was like Jesus was right there. It was like the book of Daniel. And I always say more happened in that cell than everything I've done in my whole life for peace combined. And I don't understand it, but it's sort of like the message of surrender. That I call it, there's an inverse proportionality. And this is the problem with us activists. The more we're gonna do it to Tonka. We're gonna end wars and injustice. The less happens. The more you let go and take risks and cross the line and follow Jesus into real nonviolent resistance to the empire and take up the cross, then the more can happen. And I just felt so much was happening. We got, you better interrupt me, but we got 5,000 letters each, Phil and I. So the room was full of letters and our Bibles. And every single letter said, "Oh, you poor guy, I could never do it." And I'm reading them going, "Oh, thank you, I can't believe I'm here." It was horrible. And then forgive my name dropping, but I had 2 letters in the same week. One is from Mother Teresa. "Dear John, oh, you're in prison. Oh, thank God. I'm so glad you're suffering. I hope you really suffer a lot. Now we're getting somewhere, having a priest following Jesus." I was just like, where's the sympathy? And then Joan Chittister, do you know her?
Right, of course.
She writes me, "Dear John, so you're in prison. Oh, thank God." The only 2 people who wrote me and said, "Now we're getting somewhere." I never forgot the sentence she wrote. She says, "You're reminding us that the only way to peace and justice is through our participation in the paschal mystery of Jesus." That you have to take risks. And you know the stories of the abolitionists, the suffragists, the civil rights movement. You need frontline people. Some who are even willing to cross lines and break bad laws as good people and accept the consequences, because that's how nonviolence works. Then it can become contagious. And that's what we need in the United States. Not just the No King's March. Maybe we had 10 million people in the streets. We need 20 million the next time. But we also need people now blocking federal buildings in meticulous, prayerful nonviolence, Gandhi Kingian level, and willing to commit nonviolent civil disobedience, to go into courts and say, enough of all this insanity and violating of these laws and these criminals in power, and taking nonviolent risks And that's how the change happens. But we have power. Bottom-up people power, grassroots movements works. Not everybody needs to do civil disobedience or more dramatic things like Phil and I did, but everybody's got to do something.
Yeah, I was thinking, you mentioned Eknath Easwaran's biography of Gandhi, and Eknath Easwaran was one of my teachers, but Gandhi
Really?
is such an extraordinary
he was
teacher too.
amazing.
Yeah, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what Gandhi's contribution to our understanding of nonviolence is.
Well, Gandhi was the greatest disciple of Jesus who ever lived.
Yeah,
Hands down. He's way beyond St. Francis or our friend Archbishop Tutu. And Tutu would be the first to agree. Because Gandhi is, first of all, in 1900, he's a student of Tolstoy who gave his life for Matthew chapter 5, verse 37. Did you know that?
yeah.
You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, offer no violent resistance to one who does evil. Tolstoy said, that means all Christians are forbidden to do violence. And they didn't have this clumsy word, nonviolence, so he talked about passive resistance.
Yeah.
Gandhi takes that and runs with it. Gandhi reads the Sermon on the Mount every morning and every evening for the last 45 years of his life. And unlike us, he said, I'm just going to do what the guy said.
Right.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
think this is nice reading. Oh, he's talking about hunger and thirst for justice, be a peacemaker, love your enemies, offer no violent resistance. And he's got the British. So I got to figure out how to do this. So he became Gandhi, and he went deeper into prayer. And what he did, there's no phones, no faxes. In 1919, they had a national strike and got 300 million people in India to just stay home. And he said, it's for prayer and fasting, which was not protest language.
Yeah.
Well, the British didn't stand a chance. So in my book, I'm talking about trying to do the will of God, and Gandhi, this is partly how I got, he's totally given over to God and Jesus, and he says, so I'm not going to tell us what to do, I'm just going to ask God. And everybody goes, oh, okay, Gandhi. This is 1930. He spends 2 years waiting for God, and then he says to his friends one day, God told me what to do. We're going to walk to the sea and we're going to pick up salt, and that will be the end of the British Empire. And they thought he was nuts.
Yeah.
And he gets 75 friends. There's nothing in the middle of nowhere, and they start walking, and the British thought he's nuts. This is the craziest thing. So he was expecting to be shot and killed. Overnight, all of India and the whole world here's what the holy man is going to do. This is totally illegal. The British own all salt laws. He walks to the sea. The whole world is hanging on it, on his breath. Is he going to do it? And he picks up the salt. And that was the end of the British Empire. Yeah. It was just over, because then he had all of India in the palm of his hand. We've fallen a long way from that, but Dr. King did great. And that's why I want everybody to rise to the occasion, to Gandhi level. And what I'm interested in, Malcolm, is real, total, holistic nonviolence. Now, totally nonviolent toward ourselves. Let's be totally nonviolent in all our relationships, in our families, our friends, everyone in church and coworkers and so forth. But then we're really more than ever going to give our lives to organizing and grassroots work, on all these horrific issues of life and death.
Reading your book, I was in a full nonviolent frame of mind in how I approached everything, even just in my inner thoughts. My interior life was changed. I was with you
in the book.
Yeah, I mean, but I do think, just how do you make that so it's not just like during the week that you're reading John Deere's book, but all the time? How has it become part of your habit, part of your practice?
Oh, that's
you
nice.
You were talking about meditation, and as being like a start for that too, and I think that was an important part of the book.
Yeah. How much time do we have?
We have half an hour.
2 hours?
2 hours. I'll give you another 10 minutes.
So this kid came to me and he said, He was my gym instructor, 21.
Yeah, I
At
love
the
that.
pandemic,
Yeah,
and he goes,
yeah.
I looked you up.
He was 21. I didn't know how old he was.
Yeah, I want you to be my guru. And I was thinking,
He looked you up. That's great. On the
that
internet.
works. Yeah, it's the only time I've been called a guru. But I have a long tradition of doing spiritual direction work. I don't know if you do that, but I love that. And so he comes to meet me, and I said, oh, you believe in God? He goes, oh, no, I don't believe in God. I'm going, well, why do you want to talk to me?
Yeah, right.
Because, well, I know all the greatest people in history meditated. So I want you to teach me how to meditate. I said, okay. And who do you meditating to?
Yeah.
And then I said, do you like peace? Peace is okay. Do you like truth? I like truth. Do you like love? Yeah, I like love. I said, okay, great. So here's what you do. You go off every day for a half hour and sit in silence and just be with universal love and come back and report to me. And the kid goes, okay. So he's a gym instructor full time.
Right.
He comes back next week, sitting down like this, and he goes, universal love showed up. And he burst into tears, and he says, I've been overwhelmed with infinite universal love, and I was told what I'm supposed to do. And I'm going, oh, what? And he goes, I'm called to be an extension of universal love. Have you ever heard that phrase before? Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
And I was going, great. Now, how are we going to work on that? How are you going to do that? You have to meditate every day. Your whole life is now universal love. And he's going, okay. I mean, he's really changed. Yeah. God showed up. So he starts meditating, and a couple of weeks later, he's going, well, none of that ever happened. You know, I can make that happen. That was a cycle. I said, great, go. Yeah. Your job this week is to go off and make it happen, to live in that bliss of love. Whenever you call. And he came back, I can't do it. But every time I sat down in my formal prayer, I was overwhelmed by God again. I was going, see, you're not the center of the universe. And
yeah, but he started praying.
Oh, he went with it, and he's still doing it. That's 6 or 7 years ago now. He was formal meditation time, and I write, because that's what I've done since I was 21.
Yeah.
You have to have a formal check-in time with God every day. Otherwise, what the heck are we doing?
Yeah.
And you can't become an extension of universal love or St. Francis with a channel of God's peace, or much less do God's will, unless you're really getting to know God, like I'm here with you.
Right.
And if you can't, I presume, have a good marriage if you never talk to the spouse for years in a row.
Right.
You have to have a formal check-in time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when Phil Berrigan and I were in prison, we're in the same cell, like he's going to the bathroom, hello? Yeah. And after like 4 months, you're getting on each other's nerves. So we had to set up a formal check-in time. And I would be, so how was your day yesterday? And I was with them, you know, I know.
Yeah, right.
But then that's a formal place where you can talk about your issues. I'm feeling really good. I'm really down, or whatever. And that's what, so he was learning to have a relationship. Everything was relationship.
Yeah.
And then this moved into nonviolence. We were talking about how to, if you're going to be an extension of universal love, you're going to have to surrender your whole life to God and become a person of nonviolence. And then at the end of the book, I say there's political consequences for this. If you're on this journey, by the way, you can't be building nuclear weapons.
Right.
Or support war, or Trump, or racism. I mean, there's politics to universal love. And your life has to be about universal love, universal compassion, universal peace, universal nonviolence. I think then you're at the service of humanity.
Yeah.
And you're resisting all the structures.
Yeah, and I mean,
Both
I
of
mean,
them.
I think that's such an important part, is to be motivated by that desire for universal love, that desire for God, the Sermon on the Mount, and then putting it into practice. There are things that we can learn too. You talk about Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you taught. Will is your?
I called him Will. It's not his real name.
Yeah,
It's
I figured it wasn't.
It's his middle name, and only like a couple days later I realized, because the book is, for me, what I was going through was learning that, oh my God, the point is total surrender to God. That's the language I'm using. The prayer is not my will, your will be done. And I didn't really know that until Tutu was telling me that about 10 years ago. So I was going through this inner journey, and I'm trying to coach this kid, and I'm saying, nonviolence is every aspect, including your language, because he wants to beat somebody up at the gym.
Right.
And I'm going, no.
Yeah. Now that you're a nonviolent person, that's
You can't, something's wrong there. What's going on? Go and figure out what's going on. Why? So they said they put you down. And he goes, oh, yeah, they're all good. If you sit with whatever is going on in you, whether it's anger or resentment or fear or despair, you find there's some deeper issue, and it's all ego.
Yeah.
It's all I, me, mine, to quote the Beatles. It's all selfishness and self-will. And this is what Tutu was trying to teach me, that the only way to reach the heights of nonviolence of Jesus and Gandhi and Dorothy Day and Dr. King, unfortunately, is not my will, your will be done. Yeah. I'm never doing my will again. I'm totally going to give my life to God. And then God can run and use you. Now, I'm such an ego guy. I thought, in the Jesuits, we would think we're really... And, have you ever met anybody doing God's will like me? You see how crazy that is? And that's what I was thinking, I'm doing it. I'm a plowshares activist. Not at all. And then during the pandemic, as I was really going deeper into prayer, I was going, God, there's different levels of ego I didn't know about, and selfishness. I'm tired of all that now. And I want to really surrender all that. So I was coaching the kid about this. Like, throughout the day, you return to that encounter with God. If anything negative comes up, you give it over to God. Like, so in the Marshall Rosenberg sense, when you're about to snap at somebody, you're going to have to say, God, I don't want to snap at this person. Help me out. And then you pray for the person.
Yeah.
And that is such a game changer. That if you can get into praying for the person who's pushing your buttons, you're getting out of yourself already, and you're letting God take over the scene, and then you'll find yourself with a little empathy and what's going on with this person, that they're saying something, and how can I serve this person? And then you find out they're in much greater need than you, and you find out, well, you had something unresolved. Now, I want to take all of this and apply it to the planet. Yeah. That's what Gandhi did. He said, we can practice meticulous inner nonviolence, interpersonal nonviolence, and we can so love the British that they're going to go, what were we thinking? And leave nonviolently. Yeah. That's what he said can happen. And Dr. King said, and we know that now. The Berlin Wall fell nonviolently. Yeah, right. Apartheid ended nonviolently. We have the power to do this, but we're also scared. And that's ego. That's not doing God's will. That's not following Jesus.
It's that, but it's also an ideology that you mentioned in the book too, which is the ideology that you can that you can bring peace through violence. I mean, and that is such a pernicious idea.
Well, that just doesn't.
It's
that's
so
just not
deeply
true.
It's
so violence in response to violence always leads to further violence. It's an eye for an eye, which Gandhi said just makes the whole world blind. War does not bring peace. Contrary to what we're being taught now. I mean, it's like we're living so beyond George Orwell, and democracy is fascism. So racism is equality, because it's insane. So war always sows the seeds for future wars, always. And so it never brings community or healing everything Jesus wants and is looking for. War is anti-God, anti-Christ, anti-life. War brings death. I mean, we might talk here at Grace Cathedral about Matthew 25. Whatever you did to the homeless, the hungry, the thirsty, the sick, the imprisoned, you did to me. War makes millions of people homeless, hungry, sick, in prison, and it vaporizes them and kills them, and they are on track to use these nuclear weapons. Don't be fooled, everybody. The days of being naive are over. This is where we're headed unless we stand up and speak out as Christians. And the same, we're seeing it with the environment. So we all have to get through our heads that, what if Jesus was at least as smart as us? Can I propose that?
Yeah.
That he knew what he was talking about when he said, love your enemies, don't kill them. There is no such thing as a just war theory. That if you organize nonviolently, you can end wars and resolve all conflicts. Everything Jesus said has been proven true by Gandhi and all the 85 nonviolent resolutions of wars and revolutions since Gandhi's life. We know this methodology of social change works. But it's not just a political methodology of dialogue and pursuing nonviolent resolutions. It's a way of life. It's a spirituality.
Well, see, a way
it's
of
about
understanding
God.
yourself too. I mean, to not be violent to yourself in terms of your self-perception.
Well, we are all consumed by violence now. Everybody on the planet, because we're not just brainwashed. We're violent toward ourselves, and this is why we've even begun to scratch the surface of what Gandhi discovered electricity.
Yeah.
But we haven't. We're still at that infant stage,
Right.
And Dr. King moved us farther. But why was everybody giving up? This is where the action is, and it is a clumsy word. But the word peace doesn't work. The word love doesn't work. Even everybody's for love.
Yeah.
But active, creative nonviolence and being totally nonviolent to yourself and not giving in to the empire and not putting yourself down and really giving space for the God of peace to live in you. And this is what I've been working on, to let go of all your junk inside. Just give it all to God, your anger, your resentments, hatred, violence, fear. And let the risen Jesus give you his resurrection gift of peace. And then start, peacemaking with everybody in your life.
Yeah,
but then we're going to organize nonviolently. We have, Dr. King defined nonviolence as power. Yeah. We have a power. Yeah. And all of this is in Luke 10, where Jesus sends the 72 out as lambs into the midst of wolves. You're to heal everybody of violence. You're to expel the demons of MAGA. I think that's the translation. And then you're to proclaim the coming of God's reign of a new world without war, empire, violence, killing. Yeah. And then they come back rejoicing, and he says,
it worked.
I gave you power. This works, and no harm's going to come to you. Yeah. But then they're all full of themselves, and he's going, well, no, the point is God is doing this. Remember that? Rejoice because your names are written in it. And then he starts rejoicing, and that's when he says, this is your gracious will. And that gets me to the question of the will of God, which has been my bugaboo these last 10 years. I think that's the only place in the 4 Gospels where the poor guy is happy. It's really serious, where his followers went out like Gandhi and Dr. King on the peace movement as organizers. That's what he wants us to do. Lambs, we have to be lambs, totally nonviolent, and go into the culture and proclaim the coming of God's reign, which is ending all wars and violence and justice for everybody and welcoming dignity and dialogue and our humanity.
We have a tradition on the forum. We take questions from everybody, and Rebecca's will sort through questions and bring them to me. So I just wanted to let you know, and for all our audience about it too. You talk about Carl Jung and
I do?
Yeah, and the idea of moving from being unconsciously conscious to unconsciously unconscious to consciously conscious.
It's very hard to get that sentence down.
It is, isn't it? That's why I had to write it down.
You want me to say a word?
Yeah.
So it was actually what he told his first student, who's a really great guy, Robert Johnson. Did you ever read him?
Yes.
You know who he is?
The book. Yeah.
Yeah, his memoir is incredible. I think it's Between Heaven and Earth. Anyway, Jung said to him that life is a journey of being unconsciously conscious. So the baby is unconsciously fully God in universal love, innocent peace. And then we spend our whole lives becoming consciously unconscious.
Yeah.
Like we're so sophisticated and full of ourselves, we're idiots.
Yeah.
And we're going along with Trump and all. And the journey, he said to Robert Johnson, is can we return fully mature, like Thich Nhat Hanh, fully mindful, but to be consciously conscious. And that's I love that, because it's another way of saying totally mature Christians, fully alive like Gandhi, nonviolence toward ourselves, everyone, we're going to be so conscious and mindful of our behavior and what's happening, and even deep interiorly, no longer doing our will, my selfishness, my ego. I'm just full on. I want to be a channel of universal love and peace. And then God can get somewhere with us.
Yeah, and Dr. King talks about always like becoming. Like I'm not a person of peace. I'm becoming a person of peace.
Yeah.
I'm not nonviolent. I'm becoming nonviolent.
Right. So it's the journey and the progress. That's why we don't have to be perfect, but we are a journey. And I think we all need to rise to the occasion and step up. And we're being called to something we never thought of. It's like Jesus saying to Peter at the end. It's very strange in John's gospel. You know, Peter's done it all. And only at the very end he goes, now someone's going to take you where you'd rather not go.
Right, exactly.
Follow me.
Yeah.
I think that we're all in that moment now.
Yeah.
We're going to have to kind of step up to the plate.
So tell me a little about, so for Will, that interaction with you, it's like the idea of becoming consciously conscious. He probably had never thought of that before. I think it's helpful for older people and younger people to be in dialogue. What do you think he learned from you specifically that kind of helped him be able to thrive as a spiritual being? And did his ideas about, what God is change through this whole process?
Well, he's still on the journey.
Yeah.
But what happened, first of all, to him is he got hired during the pandemic to fly off to the Bahamas and run this big resort, the gym and the sports program. And he's getting a lot of money, and he can live in the Bahamas for the rest of his life. I'm going, wow. And then he's doing that, but we're still Zooming because of on the phone talking about meditating. And he's meditating, and he's starting to teach meditations. There's a different 1,000 people at the resort every week, and and I'm going, okay. And then he's going on a vacation, he says, at 24, to New Zealand. And I'm going, okay, with the girlfriend. And he's going to meet later. And he's climbing a mountain. And he's on this mountain by himself, halfway around the world, meditating. And the rescue helicopter flies over the big mountain where they filmed Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And he feels universal love, and he starts sobbing and says, I'm called to be a paramedic on the front lines of suffering people for the world. I was like, oh. And he quits his job, leaves the Bahamas, goes to an EMT, is number one in his class, and gets into UCLA, which is the number one paramedic school in the country. And he's immediately, like 1 week later, riding around midnight shift in the ambulance, and he comes upon 3 guys who had been sitting talking at night, and the gangs drove by an initiation and shot them all. And he saved their lives.
Yeah.
And now he's done that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And he graduated at the top of his class as a paramedic. And he has great plans. And he's meditating every day. And he's bringing none of this is all beyond my comprehension. He's totally giving over to serving people like Paul
You
Farmer.
didn't do it, but
Believe me,
you
I didn't
helped
do it.
him to open
No,
up
I didn't
doors.
help him open anything. I didn't. I just said, go off and meditate.
Yeah.
And what I've been saying is, are you still meditating? Are you still, we journal. We were doing writing practice together, which I find helps to be consciously conscious.
Yeah.
I don't know if you journal.
I do.
Yeah, it's really
I
important.
write more in a journal when I'm not preaching a lot. I
Yeah,
preached
no, I know
5
what you mean.
sermons in like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I wasn't
that's-
writing the journal.
You get it, but you can kind of, you and I, maybe, I don't know, it's a male thing, but we get ourselves organized. And, but he's really gone with it and feels all the spiritual training we did helps when he's with people in agony and dying. Like he's saving 20 people a day. The stories he tells me, I can't even believe. And I could never do that.
Right.
So what was your question again?
Yeah, no, just how do we learn, like older people are learning from younger people, people who are like learning how to be conscious.
I hope he's not going to listen to this because he'd be like, yeah, have you learned anything from me, John? That's what he would say to me. He would be saying, I'm the guru, not John.
Well, I mean, I think of Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau.
Oh, God, I know.
Emerson taught Thoreau an amazing amount, and it's just natural that the Thoreau would teach him something too.
Well, did you see recently there was an article about Emerson's letters saying, I never saw this before. This is like a month ago. Our boy, our kid, gave the talk the other night at the church, and he's one of the greatest people of this century and the planet. Emerson is writing that to a friend. No, but Thoreau, and that would be a great teacher, would have a great student who would surpass the teacher.
And who would like inspire the teacher with, there's a way when Emerson writes about the natural world, it's all general, these beautiful trees. And Thoreau's like, no, these are the birch trees that are especially coming into flower.
But then the politics of that, his book on civil disobedience changed Gandhi. There was no Gandhi, there was Thoreau. Thoreau changed the world.
I think about, when I think of you in prison, I think of, Emerson coming to Thoreau and saying, what are you doing in there? And Thoreau saying, what are you doing out there?
Yeah, I used to say that to everybody. But then one day Phil Berrigan said to me, why aren't you doing enough for peace? Like, I'm in jail with you, man.
Yeah, right. What else am I going to do?
Yeah, I thought you'd laugh at that, but it was you go be in jail with Phil. Anyway, the kid is doing great, and he's still meditating, and he's on the journey and trying to practice it, but really wanting to surrender to become an extension of universal love. Can I just say the word about the Tutu story? So part of how all this happened, and I'm not sure if I told you this the last time I was here, but I was friends with Tutu for many years, and I just thought he was full of cancer. I'm going to go and see him before he dies. So I went with some friends for a month to South Africa, and it was the greatest trip of my life. And the last day I'm going to have with Tutu. Well, I didn't know he had catered a meal in my honor, and we had mass, and then we're sitting over for a couple of hours talking like this. And this is what set me going on the course. Tutu says to me, just as we're sitting down, like, John, you know nothing about nonviolence. And I just loved that. He nominated me for the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm going, oh. And he goes, I'm so glad I'm not God. I just thought he was nuts. And he launches into this big speech that, John, everything about nonviolence is about free will. And I went, what are you talking about? Do you all know this? He said, God is infinite love and total nonviolence, and therefore God has to give the human race total free will to reject love and nonviolence. Otherwise, he'd be forcing himself upon us and coercing himself, and therefore, every human being in history, this is Tutu lecturing me, every human being has rejected God, and so God is sobbing all the time because we're all killing each other.
And my favorite prophet is Jeremiah, because he weeps.
He weeps, and I weep, and now Tutu fell into my arms, and he's sobbing. I flew around the world, and that's what he wanted to tell me. And I've spent 10 years with what he said. And, he died a few years ago while I was doing all this with the kid. And I didn't know. And so what Tutu was trying to say, John, if you really want to practice nonviolence, you have to give your entire will to God. Because the human race is not doing it. We're all doing our own will.
Right.
So how do you do that? And then meanwhile, when I was here with you, I had been spending years writing my big mammoth commentary on the Gospels. And I went through every sentence, every word in the Gospels. And Jesus is always talking about the will of God. Who talks about that? So he says, Jesus, the one who does the will of God is my mother, my brother, and my sister.
Yeah.
So here's how to pray. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And then how does he go into total nonviolence on the cross? Not my will, your will be done. Not my will, your will be done. So the writers and Jesus are modeling for us how to practice nonviolence and serve God. We're done with our lives, Malcolm. You and I are now want to be 100% give our wills over to God and Jesus.
Well,
and that's where the action is.
Yeah, what the most memorable part of that for me was him, Desmond Tutu saying, John, you and I, we're going to work for peace until we die.
Oh, God. I was like,
oh, my God.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, he grabbed me by the shoulder as I was going to go, better for justice and peace. On this jacket, actually.
That's the reason I have that's the reason I have little holes in it.
Yeah. You didn't have to bring up that my jacket is full of holes.
Okay, so here's some questions we have from our...
Have we resolved everything?
Almost. So what advice do you have for soldiers and for seamen who are currently serving in the military?
Totally easy. Quit. So Malcolm, I'm really serious about this. I have spent my life as a Jesuit and a priest. I'm now a priest in residence in the Diocese of Monterey, inviting people to quit the military. I don't believe in military chaplaincies. If we're followers of the incarnation of peace and nonviolence in the nonviolent Jesus, then everything is about peace and living in peace with one another. And we're all being brainwashed. Hey, you can have a full scholarship. You can have a whole big career. You can have a lot of money. It's the only way out of poverty is to join the military. I get it. But it's being trained to kill and to be killed, and they never recover. You never recover once you've killed somebody. You've experienced that as a pastor, and I've done that among many poor people. So I started as a kid inviting people to quit. Lots of them, hundreds and thousands, and some have. And I did that at Los Alamos at our campaign. Quit. You're making $20 million building nuclear weapons. It's not worth it. Quit your job. And some people did. We need priests and ministers telling people to quit. So I had this parish in New Mexico, the poorest county in the country, really bleak. And it was on the front page of the New York Times, that county. Like, just my luck. That was the #1 recruiting for the Iraq War. Was done in the New Mexico desert. Right. And these kids, the whole town's full of kids, are saying, we've never gotten a piece of mail in our lives. We go into 9th grade, we get a letter a day from the military. Yeah. How could we not join the military? So what did I was going to do? So I said, me in a big mouth, in front of the parish one day, I will get any young person completely into college free if you refuse to go to the military. And I was going, no, now I've done it. And they look at me like, well, you can't do that. And one kid came up and said, okay.
Yeah, right.
I'll take you up on you get me into college for free. Yeah. So I called. I don't know. There's a Jesuit university in Denver up the road. And I get out the Jesuit I call the president. I go, hi, my name's John Deere. I'm down here with these poor kids. And he goes, oh, I know who you are. We all know who you are. And he goes, well, I said that this kid, he's really smart, but they got no money. He's going to join the military. Can you let him get into Regis? And he goes, sure. Anything is possible. Yeah. Anything is possible. Well, he went on for free scholarship.
Oh, so great.
And so I think we have to help people out of the military. Yeah. And what the goal, Gandhi said, is to create nonviolent, non-military peace forces around the world in an interim period in history where we're dismantling the war machine and our weapons. And we have to, not only once we get justice, every person on the planet goes to school, and at every grade you're learning nonviolence, from kindergarten to high school to college. And every church, synagogue, and mosque on the planet is always teaching nonviolence, so that over time, when we start spending billions for nonviolent structures and institutions of conflict resolution. We're not talking about a utopia without conflict, but it's going to become much more natural. Gandhi said all of that.
Yeah.
And it's all unpacking Jesus, but we need to get with the program.
So here's the next question. Please talk about women in the grace of nonviolence. There you go. You can look at it again if you want.
Well, women are way ahead of us men with the grace of nonviolence.
Well, women are much less likely to kill people than men are.
Because men are not that bright, and we're brainwashed, and we're all full of power. But women can be too. No, so, well, I don't know where the question wants to go. We could talk about patriarchy and sexism and the violence of men toward women and children. It's really so deeply within us for thousands of years. I mean, in Jesus' time, women are not considered human beings. Only men are. So that Jesus is interacting with women, he should have been killed for that alone.
Yeah, well, I just think of just how much our church has been transformed by women's leadership.
Oh, and so it has to happen in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And that's the great, it's understandable, same with the judge. We know that. And I'm very hopeful all this happens because, as John Chittister says, there's no going back.
Yeah,
So it's just a matter of time. Once you announce that there's a possibility that you can no longer have, that you can get rid of slavery, it's just a matter of time before you make the vision come true. So that's what we're talking about, a new world of total equality between men and women, total equality between all the races, and no wars, and no weapons, and no guns even, and that we all learn to respect one another in communities, within communities, with communities. So I urge all women to go deep into total nonviolence and try to use more than ever, your organized nonviolent resistance to disarm us men. And it's like you're still got that Mary Magdalene job of going and tell the guys that about the resurrection, that nonviolence is the only hope.
Disarming is a word that you use so often in this book. I really appreciated that. But here's the next question. Do you think psychedelics can help? Even bringing MAGA people to have an experience of God and love.
I think my friends asked me.
Trump just authorized $50 million for research on something for FOA approval, lots of work, and hope for PTSD and other illnesses. Yeah.
Well, let's just say, first of all, that Donald Trump is very, very sick. He's a narcissistic sociopath, and he needs to be put away. He's also a criminal. And the thousands of people around him are too. And most of our leadership are criminals. So, and very sick. So we're all very, very sick with violence. So I think that's the first thing that we have.
So it's like an infection, the violent infection of violence.
More like a zombie movie.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's an addiction to violence. But we're really brainwashed, and it's connected to power, and it's connected to ego gone wild, and will, like you could see Hesketh saying, he not only said this is God's will and divine providence for America to be bombing and killing everybody in Iran. If you read his quote, he said, we're using our indomitable will. There was it right there. And everything Jesus said is true. So, I mean, of course, that's why I work so hard against war, because war destroys people. The military destroys people. Your first 6 weeks, you take a really good young person and you train them to see that that's not a human being, and let's rape and kill this person. And you can do this, or you're going to be put in prison. It's insanity. That is clinical insanity as far as the nonviolent Jesus is concerned. So people are traumatized, and they're going to be needing therapy and medication for the rest of their lives. That's my experience with vets. The number of suicides in the Vietnam veterans is triple the number of deaths there. So that's one thing. But no, friends, I would say we all need to be consciously conscious and try to figure out how can we create a new nonviolent culture, nonviolent cities, and a nonviolent country. I think we're losing it by the minute, and we really are moving into fascism, and power never is given over to people freely. We're going to all have to rise up and demand it and resist. And the little things we've done have been working against Trump, and the middle-level courts are working. But we need massive mobilizations and resistance at all levels. And we need to all try to figure out how can we become saner people and create communities of sanity. I think that is through nonviolence. That's the message of Jesus. I could be talking about universal love and universal peace, but there is no cause for which we'll ever support the taking of a single human life ever again.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We don't hurt people, and we give our lives to stop the killing and stop the hurting.
Yeah.
Does that get at your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. I can't believe how fast the time went, John. It feels like you just got here.
We didn't even talk about the book.
I know. We talked about Will, though. That was he's a.
Well, Will is out doing great things while I'm sitting around talking about it. So, but I thank you. How about a round of applause for our fearless leader,
for you,
for Malcolm,
our guest.
For having me and for having even these conversations. I don't know why every church doesn't do this, and. Thanks, folks, for getting the book, if you would, for those here and for those online, and supporting my own work. And I have a little podcast, the Nonviolent Jesus podcast, which people would like. But
we'll put a link to that into the.
Okay, great. Yeah. But I just encourage everybody.
Yeah, and like I said, I was living closer to universal love the whole time I was reading this, and I was totally inspired by it. And John, you're such a blessing to the world. But as that reminder of just that the nonviolence is at the heart of our Savior's teaching.
And not only that, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's really freeing not to be full of your junk so much and so miserable or depressed. And this is what I learned from Tutu. Yeah. Tutu should have been a raging lunatic. Yeah. He was like a big kid. He said he laughed all the time and he cried all the time. Yeah. And that's Sermon on the Mount language. Thich Nhat Hanh, my friend, was a lot of fun to be with. And he said funny, crazy things to me that people wouldn't expect of him. And that's what I learned from the Berrigans too. So then this is the Christian way. This is the fullness of life. And if we're going to be resisting death, Dan told me when I was a kid, we got to learn how to live life to the full.
Oh, that's so true.
And we don't have to be depressed and despairing and numb ourselves to the world. And we don't have to be raging and resentful and mad. And we don't have to be afraid. We really can surrender all of that to God, put all our chips on Jesus, join hands with one another, and go forward, reclaiming the imagination for a new world of peace and nonviolence. And God will do the rest. As he did with the kid.
Right.
But he needs us to start the process.
Exactly, and keep that conversation alive. So our next guest, we're skipping next Sunday, but our next guest after that on May 3rd is our artist in residence, Bill Fontana. And he'll be talking about the project he's creating for us with our silent bells and organ pipes. It's a project called Resonance. So he records the bells. Bells are always making sounds even when we're not hearing them. And he takes those sounds and he helps us to hear them and to take them in. John's book will be in the back, and I think you might stick around for like 5 or 10 minutes to sign a few or something. That would be really good. And any of you are welcome to join us upstairs for the Choral Eucharist at 11 o'clock. And we do rely on your support for the forum. So if you have any gifts that can help us, we'd appreciate that. And John, thank you so much for coming up and
it's my pleasure. It's really great to be with you. Thanks, Malcolm.
What a blessing. Yeah, indeed.